Many people believe power comes from winning every argument, proving every point, or responding to every act of disrespect. In reality, one of the greatest forms of strength is knowing what deserves your attention and what deserves your silence. Human nature is easily pulled toward conflict. A careless comment, an insult, a rumor, or a moment of rejection can consume your thoughts for days. The more attention you give these distractions, the more control they gain over your emotions. True strength begins when you recognize that your attention is one of your most valuable resources. Every moment spent reacting to unnecessary negativity is a moment taken away from your growth. One of the greatest forms of strength is knowing that not every action deserves a reaction. Human nature often urges people to respond immediately whenever they feel challenged, criticized, or misunderstood. A harsh comment invites another harsh comment. An insult demands a defense. A rumor creates the desire to explain yourself to everyone. This instinct feels natural because the mind believes that silence is weakness. In reality, the opposite is often true. Every reaction costs something. It costs your attention, your emotional energy, your time, and sometimes even your reputation. The strongest individuals understand that these resources are too valuable to waste on every person or situation that seeks to disturb their peace. They carefully choose where to invest their energy because they know that attention is one of the most valuable forms of power a person possesses. Every time you react emotionally to something insignificant, you hand a portion of that power to whatever provoked you. Consider how often unnecessary conflicts begin. A careless remark is spoken, a negative opinion is shared, or someone deliberately attempts to provoke an emotional response. The person who reacts immediately often believes they are defending themselves, yet they unknowingly allow another individual to dictate their emotional state. Their mood changes, their focus disappears, and their peace becomes dependent on someone else's behavior. The individual who remains calm experiences something entirely different. They pause before responding. They ask whether the situation truly deserves their attention. They recognize that many conflicts exist only because someone is seeking a reaction rather than a resolution. By refusing to participate, they protect their emotional independence. Silence is often misunderstood because people assume it means surrender. Genuine silence is rarely passive. It is an intentional decision based on discipline rather than fear. It says that your peace is more valuable than proving a point to someone unwilling to understand it. It recognizes that winning every argument is impossible because some people are committed not to discovering truth, but to defending their own opinions. No amount of explanation can change a mind that has already decided not to listen. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to convince everyone, you preserve your energy for goals that genuinely improve your life. Another reason not every reaction deserves your energy is that emotions are temporary, while consequences can last for years. Words spoken in anger often remain long after the emotion that created them has disappeared. Many broken relationships, damaged reputations, and regrettable decisions began with a single uncontrolled reaction. A disciplined person understands the value of patience. They allow emotions to settle before deciding whether a response is even necessary. Often, what seemed urgent in the moment becomes completely unimportant after a short period of reflection. This simple habit prevents countless unnecessary conflicts and allows wisdom to replace impulse. Choosing not to react also strengthens your focus. Every argument you avoid leaves more time to improve yourself. Every unnecessary distraction ignored creates space for learning, building, creating, and growing. While others become consumed by drama, comparison, and endless emotional battles, you continue developing skills, strengthening discipline, and pursuing meaningful goals. Over time, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. One person spends years reacting to everything around them. The other spends those same years investing in personal growth. Their futures eventually reflect those different choices. There is also quiet confidence in recognizing that your worth does not depend on responding to every opinion. People will misunderstand you, criticize you, and sometimes judge you unfairly. None of these things determine your value unless you allow them to. Your character is revealed not by how loudly you defend yourself, but by how consistently you live according to your principles. As emotional discipline becomes part of your daily life, you begin experiencing greater peace because fewer external events have the power to disturb your inner world. You realize that true strength is not measured by how many battles you fight, but by how wisely you decide which battles are worthy of your time, your attention, and your energy, allowing everything else to pass without stealing the focus that belongs to building the life you truly want. Many people believe that power is demonstrated through revenge. They imagine that every insult must be answered, every betrayal must be repaid, and every act of disrespect requires an immediate response. Human nature is drawn toward emotional satisfaction because reacting feels like reclaiming control. Anger convinces you that striking back will restore your dignity, while pride whispers that silence will make you appear weak. Yet these impulses often create the opposite result. Emotional revenge allows another person's behavior to dictate your actions. Instead of acting according to your own principles, you begin acting according to their mistakes. In that moment, they have already influenced your decisions. Real power begins when you refuse to surrender control of your emotions to someone else's behavior. Emotional control is not the absence of feeling. You will still experience disappointment, frustration, anger, and sadness because these emotions are part of being human. The difference is that emotionally disciplined people do not allow temporary feelings to become permanent decisions. They understand that emotions provide information, but they do not allow emotions to become their leader. When something painful happens, they pause before reacting. They ask themselves whether the response they are about to give will improve the situation or simply satisfy a temporary desire for revenge. This brief moment of reflection separates wisdom from impulse. It prevents countless mistakes that can never be undone once words are spoken or actions are taken. Revenge often promises peace but rarely delivers it. After the excitement of retaliation fades, many people discover that the original problem still exists. Their anger has not disappeared, and in many cases, the conflict has only become larger. One careless decision leads to another until both sides become trapped in a cycle where each reaction creates another reason for revenge. Emotional control breaks this cycle because it refuses to allow someone else's negativity to shape your own character. Instead of becoming what hurt you, you choose to remain faithful to your own values. This decision protects your integrity because your actions continue reflecting who you are rather than what someone else has done. Another hidden strength of emotional control is that it improves your judgment. Anger narrows your perspective. It pushes you toward immediate action without fully considering long-term consequences. A calm mind sees possibilities that emotional thinking often overlooks. Sometimes the wisest response is a direct conversation. Sometimes it is establishing stronger boundaries. Sometimes it is quietly walking away. Each situation requires thoughtful evaluation rather than automatic reaction. Emotional discipline gives you the freedom to choose the response most likely to protect your future instead of simply satisfying your present emotions. There is also a strategic advantage in remaining composed. People who seek conflict often expect emotional resistance. They anticipate arguments, dramatic reactions, or visible frustration. When those reactions never arrive, they lose much of the influence they hoped to gain. Your calmness becomes unpredictable because it cannot be manipulated through simple provocation. Others begin recognizing that your peace is not easily controlled, and this quiet stability often earns greater respect than loud retaliation ever could. Emotional control also allows you to continue focusing on your own growth while others become consumed by conflict. Every hour spent planning revenge is an hour not invested in learning, improving, creating, or strengthening your future. The most meaningful response to negativity is often becoming so disciplined and successful that the situation gradually loses its importance. Your progress becomes your answer instead of your anger. As this mindset develops, your confidence changes. You no longer feel pressured to prove yourself through emotional reactions because your self-respect comes from within. You understand that true strength is measured not by how forcefully you react, but by how consistently you govern your own mind. Over time, this discipline creates a life guided by wisdom instead of impulse, patience instead of resentment, and purpose instead of distraction, allowing emotional control to become a far greater source of power than emotional revenge could ever provide. One of the greatest advantages of silence is that it allows truth to reveal itself without interference. Many people feel an immediate need to respond whenever they are confused, disappointed, or suspicious. They ask endless questions, demand explanations, and rush toward conclusions before enough information has been gathered. Human nature is uncomfortable with uncertainty, so the mind searches for quick answers even when those answers are incomplete. Yet the person who learns to remain silent for a little longer often discovers what others completely miss. Time has a unique way of exposing intentions that words alone can never reveal. Anyone can make impressive promises, offer convincing explanations, or create a favorable first impression. Consistent behavior, however, is much more difficult to imitate. Silence gives people the opportunity to reveal who they truly are through repeated actions instead of carefully chosen words. This is why observation is one of the most valuable forms of intelligence. When you stop feeling the need to react immediately, your attention shifts from defending yourself to understanding the situation more clearly. Instead of becoming consumed by emotion, you begin noticing patterns. Patterns always reveal more than isolated moments. A single mistake may simply be human weakness. A repeated pattern often reveals character. Someone may apologize sincerely after disappointing you once, but if the same behavior continues again and again, despite repeated promises, the pattern becomes more meaningful than the apology. Silence allows enough time for these patterns to become visible. The same principle applies to trust. Trust should never be built upon words alone because words are inexpensive. Genuine trust develops when actions remain consistent over time. A reliable person does not constantly explain why they should be trusted. Their behavior quietly demonstrates it. They keep their promises, fulfill responsibilities, and remain consistent even when circumstances become difficult. Someone whose intentions are dishonest often struggles to maintain consistency because deception requires constant adjustment. Given enough time, contradictions begin appearing. Stories change, excuses increase, and hidden motives slowly become visible. Silence creates the space for these truths to emerge naturally without forcing unnecessary confrontation. Another reason silence is powerful is that it prevents emotional mistakes. When people feel hurt, they often react before fully understanding what has happened. They accuse, defend, or criticize while their judgment is clouded by emotion. Later, they sometimes discover they misunderstood the situation entirely. A calm pause prevents many of these unnecessary conflicts. It allows facts to replace assumptions. Instead of reacting to what you imagine, you respond to what you actually know. This simple discipline strengthens both your relationships and your decision-making because wisdom requires observation before action. Silence also changes the way people interact with you. Many individuals reveal far more than they intend when they are given room to speak. Those who constantly interrupt or rush to fill every quiet moment often miss valuable information. A patient observer, however, notices details hidden within tone of voice, body language, repeated habits, and emotional reactions. These observations create a deeper understanding of human nature because people often communicate their true intentions indirectly through consistent behavior rather than direct statements. This ability becomes especially valuable when making important decisions about friendships, partnerships, or professional relationships. You begin choosing people based upon demonstrated character instead of temporary charm. There is also strength in accepting that not every mystery requires immediate resolution. Some answers arrive only through time. Some people reveal their loyalty only during hardship. Others reveal their selfishness only when they no longer receive what they want. By remaining patient, you avoid forcing conclusions before reality has finished revealing itself. As this habit becomes part of your life, your confidence grows because your decisions become increasingly grounded in observation rather than emotion. You waste less energy arguing over assumptions and spend more energy understanding reality. Over time, you discover that silence is not empty at all. It is filled with information that impulsive reactions often drown out. The individual who quietly watches, listens carefully, and patiently allows actions to speak eventually develops a level of wisdom that cannot be gained through constant reaction alone, because truth almost always reveals itself to those disciplined enough to wait for it. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess because whatever consistently receives your attention eventually shapes your future. Many people believe their greatest limitation is a lack of time, money, or opportunity, yet the real challenge is often the inability to protect their focus. Human nature is naturally attracted to distraction. The mind enjoys novelty, emotional excitement, and constant stimulation. Every notification, argument, opinion, controversy, and comparison competes for a place in your thoughts. At first, these distractions appear harmless because each one demands only a few moments of your attention. Over weeks, months, and years, however, they quietly consume the very energy that could have been invested in building knowledge, strengthening discipline, developing valuable skills, or pursuing meaningful goals. Success is rarely destroyed by one dramatic mistake. More often, it is weakened through thousands of small distractions that slowly steal your ability to concentrate on what truly matters. Every day you make an invisible decision about where your energy will go. Some people spend hours defending themselves against criticism from individuals who have no meaningful influence on their lives. Others become trapped in endless comparisons, constantly measuring their progress against someone else's achievements. Many allow unnecessary conflicts to dominate their thinking long after those situations have ended. While their minds remain occupied with these distractions, important opportunities quietly pass by because focused effort has been replaced with scattered attention. A disciplined person understands that every unnecessary distraction carries a hidden cost. The cost is not only the time spent, but also the mental clarity that disappears afterward. A distracted mind struggles to perform meaningful work because it is constantly shifting from one concern to another instead of giving complete attention to a single purpose. Protecting your focus requires learning to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Many distractions create the illusion of urgency. A negative comment seems to demand an immediate reply. An argument appears impossible to ignore. Someone else's opinion feels like it must be corrected right away. Yet when viewed honestly, very few of these situations truly deserve your attention. What is important is often much quieter. Improving your health, strengthening your character, learning a valuable skill, deepening meaningful relationships, and consistently working toward your long-term goals rarely create dramatic urgency. They simply require steady commitment. The person who learns to prioritize importance over urgency gradually builds a life that reflects intention rather than reaction. Focus also means accepting that saying yes to one thing requires saying no to many others. Every meaningful goal demands sacrifice. If you want mastery, you must give up countless hours of distraction. If you want wisdom, you must spend time learning instead of constantly seeking entertainment. If you want peace, you must refuse invitations into unnecessary drama. These decisions may appear small in the moment, but together they shape the direction of your life. Every distraction ignored strengthens your ability to remain committed to what truly matters. Another powerful benefit of protecting your focus is emotional freedom. When you stop allowing every outside event to enter your mind, you experience greater calm. You no longer feel responsible for responding to every opinion or solving every conflict around you. Your energy becomes available for growth instead of constant reaction. This calmness improves your judgment because clear thinking replaces emotional overload. Decisions become wiser because your mind is no longer crowded with unnecessary noise. As this discipline develops, your progress begins accelerating. Skills improve more quickly because your practice becomes deeper. Relationships become stronger because your attention is fully present instead of divided. Goals become more achievable because consistent effort replaces scattered activity. Others may continue chasing every distraction that appears before them, but you quietly continue building a future shaped out by deliberate choices. In time, you realize that protecting your focus is not about ignoring the world. It is about refusing to allow the unimportant to steal your attention from what truly deserves it. Understanding that every moment of concentrated effort becomes another investment in the person you are determined to become and the life you are patiently creating through disciplined attention every single day. Many people unknowingly spend their lives seeking permission to feel valuable. They wait for compliments before believing they are capable, for recognition before believing they have achieved something meaningful, and for approval before making important decisions. This habit begins quietly. As children, we are often praised for doing well and corrected when we make mistakes. While encouragement is important, many people gradually become dependent on it. They begin measuring their worth through the reactions of others instead of through the strength of their own character. Over time, this dependence becomes a hidden prison. Every opinion gains the power to influence their confidence. Every criticism feels like a personal attack. Every moment of being ignored feels like evidence that they are not enough. The problem is not the opinions themselves. The problem is allowing those opinions to become the foundation of your identity. Genuine confidence is built differently. It grows from private victories that require no applause. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes evidence that you are trustworthy. Every difficult habit you maintain strengthens your discipline. Every challenge you overcome increases your resilience. These experiences create confidence that exists independently of public recognition because they are rooted in personal truth rather than external approval. When your confidence is built this way, you no longer need constant reassurance. You know what you are capable of because you have repeatedly proven it to yourself through action instead of words. One of the greatest shifts in personal growth occurs when you stop asking whether people notice your progress and begin asking whether you are becoming better than you were yesterday. This simple change redirects your attention away from comparison and toward improvement. Instead of competing for attention, you compete with your previous limitations. Instead of seeking validation, you seek mastery. This mindset transforms every setback into an opportunity to learn because your goal is no longer to appear perfect, but to become stronger. As a result, criticism loses much of its emotional power. You listen carefully to useful feedback because it helps you grow, but you no longer allow every negative opinion to define your self-worth. Another reason your value increases when you stop seeking validation is that people naturally respect those who possess quiet confidence. Desperation often pushes individuals to overshare their achievements, constantly explain their decisions, or seek agreement from everyone around them. This behavior unintentionally communicates uncertainty because it reveals a need for external confirmation. Quiet confidence is different. It does not demand attention because it has nothing to prove. It allows actions to speak louder than explanations. It remains calm because it is supported by preparation rather than praise. Others often trust this kind of confidence because it feels stable and authentic. There is also freedom in accepting that not everyone will appreciate you. Some people will misunderstand your intentions. Others will criticize your choices simply because they would have chosen differently. No amount of explanation can guarantee universal approval. Once you accept this reality, you stop exhausting yourself trying to satisfy impossible expectations. Your energy returns to places where it creates real progress, developing your skills, strengthening your character, and building meaningful relationships with people who appreciate authenticity rather than performance. Over time, this creates a remarkable transformation. You become more selective with your words because you no longer feel compelled to defend yourself constantly. Your decisions become clearer because they are guided by principles instead of popularity. Your emotional stability grows because your peace no longer depends upon changing opinions. Opportunities often increase as well because capable, self-assured individuals naturally inspire trust. People are drawn toward those who remain composed under pressure and committed to their values regardless of public approval. Eventually, you realize that the greatest form of validation comes from living in alignment with your own standards, consistently becoming wiser, stronger, and more disciplined each day. When you stop chasing acceptance from everyone around you, you create space to build genuine self-respect, and that quiet self-respect becomes a source of strength that no criticism, rejection, or temporary setback can easily take away because it has been earned through character instead of applause. The greatest form of influence is not created through loud words, impressive titles, or constant displays of power. It is created through inner peace. In a world where many people react impulsively, become offended easily, and allow every external event to control their emotions, the individual who remains calm immediately stands apart. Human nature is naturally attracted to certainty and stability. People instinctively trust those who remain composed during pressure because emotional balance suggests strength, wisdom, and self-control. This is why inner peace is far more powerful than emotional intensity. Anyone can react with anger when criticized, but very few can remain calm, think clearly, and choose a response that serves their long-term purpose instead of their temporary emotions. Inner peace begins with accepting that you cannot control everything around you. Many people spend years trying to manage the opinions, actions, and decisions of others. They become frustrated when people misunderstand them, disappointed when expectations are not met, and anxious when life refuses to follow their plans. The harder they try to control every outcome, the more exhausted they become. Peace arrives when you recognize the difference between what belongs within your control and what does not. You cannot decide how everyone will treat you, but you can decide how you respond. You cannot prevent every obstacle from appearing, but you can prepare yourself to face them with wisdom. This simple shift transforms frustration into clarity because your attention returns to the areas where your actions truly matter. Another important source of inner peace is emotional discipline. Emotions themselves are not enemies. Anger, sadness, disappointment, and fear all provide valuable information. Problems arise only when emotion becomes your master instead of your guide. A peaceful person does not ignore emotions. They acknowledge them without allowing them to dictate every decision. They understand that emotions change quickly, while consequences often remain for years. By creating a small space between feeling and responding, they protect themselves from countless unnecessary mistakes. This habit strengthens judgment because decisions become guided by principles instead of temporary emotional storms. Inner peace also changes the way people perceive you. Many individuals attempt to gain influence by speaking the loudest, arguing the hardest, or demanding attention. These methods often produce temporary compliance, but rarely create lasting respect. Calm confidence works differently. When you remain composed while others become emotional, your words naturally carry greater weight because they are not clouded by unnecessary reaction. People begin listening more carefully because your behavior demonstrates stability rather than impulsiveness. Quiet confidence is persuasive precisely because it does not appear desperate to prove itself. There is also tremendous freedom in no longer allowing every criticism to enter your mind. People will always have opinions, some thoughtful and some careless. If you attempt to answer every criticism, defend every misunderstanding, or satisfy every expectation, your peace gradually disappears. A disciplined mind learns to evaluate feedback wisely. Useful criticism becomes an opportunity for improvement. Meaningless negativity is allowed to pass without unnecessary attention. This ability protects your focus because your emotional energy is invested where it creates growth instead of endless conflict. As inner peace becomes part of your character, your relationships also begin changing. You communicate more patiently because frustration no longer controls your words. You make decisions more carefully because urgency no longer overwhelms your judgment. You become more dependable because your actions remain consistent regardless of changing emotions. Others feel safer trusting someone whose reactions are guided by wisdom instead of impulse. This quiet reliability becomes one of the strongest forms of influence because trust is earned through consistency over time. Eventually, you discover that peace is not something the world gives you after every problem disappears. It is something you build within yourself while challenges still exist. Every moment you choose patience instead of anger, understanding instead of assumption, discipline instead of impulse, and purpose instead of distraction strengthens this inner foundation. Over time, your presence itself begins communicating confidence because your calmness cannot be easily disturbed by outside circumstances, allowing your influence to grow naturally through the steady example of a mind that has learned to remain centered regardless of what happens around it.